Hey guys, Pastor Lance here. This is Quarantine Chronicles, Part 1. Let's go. Episode 1 for Quarantine Chronicles is called The Paradox of the Divine Presence. You said, Pastor Lance, why are you using big words on me? I've been out of school for 2 weeks now. Listen, I know, we'll explain it to you. Last week, I was on my way home from work, and everything about this coronavirus all at once just kind of hit me. I was listening to a very popular Christian song called Waymaker, and the opening lyrics say this. They say, "You are here moving in our midst. You are here working in this place." And I couldn't help but think to myself, is God really here in the middle of all of this? Maybe your flesh has responded the same way these last couple weeks. Where is God in the middle of all of this coronavirus? It just continues to spread. It continues to get bigger. It continues to kill more people. In the Old Testament, there was a judge whose name was Gideon. And Gideon actually had a very similar response to what I just explained to you. The children of Israel at this point had been in bondage for several years now. And God comes to Gideon's doorstep and basically says to Gideon, I want you to lead the charge and save my people. I am with you. You have my presence. And we see Gideon's response is very simple. He says, if you are with us, God, why has all of this befallen us? And I think oftentimes we can tend to think that towards God. Hey, God, if you're with us, if your presence is with me, why is all this happening around us? Are you who you really say you are? And teens, you got to catch this. There's a bit of a paradox at play here, and that is this. God is with us, but it sure doesn't look like it. You see, Gideon tried so hard to reconcile the assurance of God's presence with the actual signs of weakness and brokenness around him, and he was having a hard time putting those things together. Pastor John MacArthur said this. He said, there's something so ironic in the statement, Jehovah is with thee, and the actual condition of the person being addressed. Perhaps the greatest thing that we have to reckon with as Christians during this time is this. God is with us, but it sure doesn't look like it right now. So, as teenagers, as Christians, what do we do? How do we respond to this very thought? Perhaps even a doubt in your mind about God's presence. The first word of encouragement that I'd like to give you today is this. I want to point you to the old hymn, It Is Well With My Soul. Many of you have sung this hundreds of times, but oftentimes it hasn't sunk deep into our hearts. And now is the time to sing that to ourselves. Now is the time to return to those truths of that classic timeless hymn, which is, God, even though things aren't the way that I think they should be right now, it's okay with my soul. I put my faith and my trust in you. I trust that you have a bigger plan. The second thing that I want to point you to is this. We must rest in God's sovereignty. If we truly do believe that God is omniscient, omnipresent, that he is over all, that he has a grand plan in mind, then we must accept the parts of the story that we really don't like, or the parts of the story that scare us. And oftentimes we forget that in moments of fear, or moments of calamity, or moments of chaos. And I want to simply remind you this morning to rest in his sovereignty. He has gone before us. He knows what's ahead. The last thing I'd like to point you today in conclusion is this. There's a lot that happened in Gideon's story. Ultimately, he trusts God and he moves forward step by step with just a little bit of courage each time. But may we always remember how this story ends, because it ends in victory. And even though Gideon had to process and had to really wrestle with this divine paradox, so to speak, at the end of the day, it ended in victory for him and for the people. And guess what? At the end of this whole coronavirus, at the end of your life, you're going to look back and you're going to see God's hand. You're going to see his sovereignty in your life and in the lives of those around you. And may you today just continue to trust him step by step, just like Gideon did. Oftentimes, Gideon didn't have the courage to take that next step that God wanted him to, but he finally got the courage to step out in faith, and God blessed it. How can you step out in faith and courage today? Maybe it's with your emotions, maybe it's physically in some way, maybe it's just spiritually taking a step of faith, saying, God, I trust you with what is to come. Hey, that's episode 1 of the Divine Paradox, Quarantine Chronicles. Episode 2 coming at you next week. We'll see you later.